What is good, everyone? And welcome back to another episode of the Sport Your Enthusiasm podcast. I am your humble host, Bryce Benjamin, and a little bit of a different episode today. I'm actually going to be here by myself. None of my co-hosts was able to make it in this weekend, and actually recording a little bit later than we normally would. This normally record on Friday and release that same day, but a little bit of a later episode, Sunday edition here. And it's going to be a little bit shorter as well since I am by myself. So I'm not going to be talking for, an hour and a half, 2 hours, and probably not even an hour about about the, sports. But I do appreciate you guys tuning in. And there's a couple of things that I wanted to touch on. Mainly, I definitely want to discuss some NFL football. I definitely want to get into some football talk. We got some huge games going on this week. A lot of playoff implications going on with them. So definitely want to give my takes on a couple of those. I want to touch on the NCAA football a little bit there. We had the Heisman Trophy winner announced. Shout out to the man, Kyler Murray, winning that one there. So just give my thoughts on that one, brief touch on that, not too much. The playoff rankings were released as well, so we know what the playoff teams are going to be for the NFL, for the college, and then also maybe touch on a little bit of NBA as well. And then last night we had a couple of big fights as well, so we'll see how this episode goes. Oh yeah, and then actually recorded our first ad for one of our supporters, so that would definitely be in this episode as well. So look forward to you guys hearing that. But what I want to start off with first, actually, is what happened, incident that happened actually in February, but the video was released last week. And as we all know, we all seen it. It happened with former Kansas City Chiefs running back Kareem Hunt. There was a video incident that took place in February at a hotel party in which he got into a altercation with a female at one of his hotel get-together parties, it looked like. And I know we all seen the video, so I don't want to get too much into describing the video, what happened. Like, the main thing that a lot of people are taking out of it, well, media-wise, I should say, is that Kareem Hunt, got physical with the person in the video there, who happens to be a female. And just want to touch on that a little bit, and then I want to give my thoughts on the football implications of that as well. So with the video, I feel like that the video was obtained by TMZ, and then they go ahead and released it, and then now the NFL is trying to save face, So as soon as the video comes out, about an hour after the video comes out, Roger Goodell places him on the NFL exemption list, and then 30 minutes later, the Chiefs went ahead and cut him. And I get why they did so. The NFL is a business, and that video is literally bad for business. They don't want themselves attached to the video, especially after the Ray Rice incident that happened 4 years ago with him knocking out his fiance. Now, the two, Ray Rice with his fiance, him knocking his girl out, and this one here, this not even close in terms of what went down in the video. So I don't want to do that. But with Kareem Hunt, he, first of all, he should have handled that in a different way. He definitely should have handled that in a different way. You could tell that they was kind of inebriated off whatever is alcohol or whatever substance that they was using. So you could tell that everybody that was involved in that video was definitely not in the right state of mind, it looked like. But as Kareem Hunt, you definitely got to handle that a different way, because this is what's going to happen. You hate to say it, but he may have thrown it all away just from that incident. And I don't like how the media is trying to portray it. He physically brutalizes woman to the point where he beat her to a pulp. He basically trying to say that he Ray Riced her, he knocked her out or whatever. He pushed the guy into the girl. She fell down a couple of times there, and then ultimately went and kicked her. But Like I said, by all means, he definitely should have handled it a different way. And now he is kind of reaping what he sowed, unfortunately. Well, he reaped what he sowed. So I don't want to dive into too much with the video there. Everybody has their own opinion on it. But in terms of the football aspect of it, that is a huge loss for the Kansas City Chiefs. I feel like that they definitely lost one of their major offensive weapons. So Kareem Hunt for the season, he was averaging, he had 824 yards and 7 touchdowns rushing. And then you tack on his receiving stats where he had 26 catches, 378 yards, and to tack on another 7 touchdowns receiving. So that's literally like a lot of offense production. That's over 1,000 yards of offensive production and also 14 touchdowns taken off the boards there for him. So the Kansas City Chiefs, I understand why they made the decision. It was a business decision. They had to save face. And real quick, also, before I get into that, the NFL, I think they are definitely the ones who need to be looked at the most in this situation. Now, Kareem Hunt did what he did. He's being punished for what he did. And now he's taking the necessary steps to try to save face. Whoever his team is, they're doing a good job of, telling him all the right things to do. He's doing the interviews. He's not backing down from the situation. And hopefully he reached out to the girl and apologized and, things of that nature there. By the way, no charges were pressed. So the NFL definitely didn't handle this the best way. It was a don't ask, don't tell situation where they didn't even attain the video. They seem like reports say that they tried to obtain the video, but I don't think they really did. They didn't obtain the video, and they kind of hoped that this never came out because he's, the NFL, he was making the money. People was tuning in to watch him play, and the Kansas City Chiefs obviously was helping him win. So, video comes out, and they got to cut bait to save face. So that happens. But anyways, back to the football implications of it. So the Kansas City Chiefs are losing a big chunk of their offense there. And this is, getting right down to the nitty gritty. We're in the last couple of weeks of the NFL season. Playoffs are going to be beginning soon. So definitely a big blow to that offense there. And, to kind of replace him, they have Spencer Ware, who on the season has 36 rushes for 171 yards and 2 touchdowns, who, spelled him pretty well, averaged about 4.8 yards a carry. So that's very decent. And then they go ahead and re-sign one of the former Kansas City Chiefs running back that they had in Sharkhandrick West. So they bring him aboard to pretty much spell Spencer Ware, and they're going to go back to that 2-headed running game. Ultimately, I still think the Kansas City Chiefs are definitely a threat in the NFL still, in the AFC. They're still got to be one of the favorites to represent them in the Super Bowl. They still got one of the more dynamic offenses in the league. Like Patrick Mahomes, who's probably the MVP at this point in the season, he's still balling out. We got to keep in mind that this man, he's going to eclipse 4,000, maybe even 5,000 yards this season. 41 touchdowns. He still has a shot to actually break Peyton Manning's record on that one there. So we'll see how that goes. 41 touchdowns, 10 interceptions on the season. And they still have one of the most dynamic receiving cores in the league, like Tyreek Hill, one of the best receivers in the league, over 1,000 yards receiving, 11 touchdowns. Travis Kelce, the best tight end in the league, in my opinion, over 1,000 yards and 9 touchdowns. And then they got still got Sammy Watkins, who's having a decent season as a number 2, Chris Conley, and then actually picked up Calvin Benjamin as he was cut from the Buffalo Bills. So we'll see how that transaction goes. Don't really see him getting that much burn. And then really the Kansas City, the detriment of this team right now is the weakness of this team right now, I should say, is that defense. That defense is not performing admirably. They get after the quarterback. Kansas City Chiefs definitely get after the quarterback with, in terms of sacks there. They have one of the more dynamic pass rushes in the league. And the nice thing, how Kansas City, how I've seen them is that, they go and they score all these points on you. and that unleashes the hounds pretty much. They're able to go out, at least their pass rushers, D Ford, Tamba Hali, Justin Houston, and they go ahead and close out games for you there. So the secondary is kind of weak still. Secondary is still looking a little bit weak, but we'll see how they bounce back. What happens with this loss with Kareem Hunt. Ultimately, like I said, I don't think it's going to affect them too much. Like last week, they beat the Oakland Raiders 40-33 in an offensive shootout there. So that's a typical Chiefs game. They're going to score points, and they're going to get points scored on them. That's not going to stop. But I do think that, like I said, it's a key weapon that they're losing in Kareem Hunt. It's a lot of production that they're losing, and it's going to be hard to replace. So they're definitely going to try to replace it by committee. Not one player is going to be able to do that. And then the whole offense is going to have to step up in that loss. So we'll see how they handle that. So this week they are playing my Baltimore Ravens at 1:00 in Arrowhead, and very interesting game here. So the AFC right now is in a very tight playoff race. So we pretty much see who the division winners are going to be. Like the Patriots, they run in the AFC East as always. And the AFC West is really coming down to two teams. It's either going to be the Chiefs or it's going to be the Chargers. The Chiefs right now are 10-2. The Chargers are 9-3. The Chiefs currently own the tiebreaker with the win that they had over San Diego, I believe it was at week 1 or 2. And then they actually play one more time. So that's going to be a huge game. And then right now the Ravens are currently a half a game back behind the Pittsburgh Steelers for the AFC North. So they're definitely trying to catch the Steelers. They split during the season right now. So that's going to be very interesting to see how that close out. And then in the AFC South, obviously we see that the Houston Texans are going to lock that division up there. They have a 2-game lead over the Tennessee Titans and have won 9 straight. So I don't see them. Actually, I got to take on the Houston Texans. I'm going to give that a little bit later. But it looked like the Texans are going to lock that up. But to go back to the game, Baltimore versus KC, that's one of the big games I wanted to touch on. Game is in Kansas City. You got the number 1 scoring offense against the number 1 scoring defense. Plus the Chiefs have the 3rd overall offense in the NFL right now, averaging over 438 or 37 yards per game. The Baltimore Ravens, the number 1 scoring defense right now, giving up less than 18 points a game, and also the number 1 defense in general, giving up only 281, just under 282 yards per game there. So this is one of those things there where I love matchups like this, where you got the number 1 offense going against the number 1 defense, and you always have the ultimate chess match. Now, growing up as a Baltimore Ravens fan, like having a great defense is something that I've definitely grown accustomed to. We had the Ray Lewis era, the Ray Lewis and Ed Reed era, where I was able to enjoy that domination for over a decade, watching them two ball out, which was definitely a pleasure. And then good defense in Baltimore is nothing new. And this year it is a little bit different though because of the type of offense that we're running. So if you haven't been watching, the Lamar Jackson era has begun in Baltimore and is off to a good start, actually, a great start. Lamar Jackson is currently 3-0 as a starter and took out a couple of decent teams. Well, not really decent teams. We beat the Atlanta Falcons last week. We beat the Oakland Raiders. And then we also beat the Cincinnati Bengals, who are all, losing record teams. Not going to make the playoffs there. But I don't want to take anything from Lamar Jackson. He's played decent. Definitely room for improvement, especially as a passer. He missed on a couple of passes that as a quarterback you just can't do. But the way he is controlling an offense, they're keeping the opposing team's offense off the field.